What's up, film jammers? Should you sell your Fujifilm GF 23mm f4 lens now that Fuji has released the 20 to 35mm lens? That's the question I kept asking myself as I sipped a lukewarm English breakfast tea as I looked out over the lush Scottish landscape. Was my client paying me hourly?
Possibly.
But these are important questions because we just got the new Fuji 20 to 35mm zoom lens. Could it replace one of my favorite wide-angle lenses, the 23mm prime? Well, we took them out for some all-telling side-by-side comparisons in our Fuji 23mm versus 20 to 35mm showdown. Film.
Yes.
So after seeing these two lenses side by side, I'm not sure I'm ready to part ways with my 23mm prime yet. I'll likely keep both lenses, at least for now. The 20 to 35mm definitely offers more versatility with its zoom range, but there were certain things about the shots on the 23mm that just had a specific aesthetic. It was hard to pinpoint, but I just like them better sometimes. And when I blew up the images, I sort of preferred the 23mm as well. Something about lens character, that guy at the camera shop always used to say, as he grazed his hand across my shoulder uncomfortably. Good times. As far as flares, sometimes I prefer the flares on the 23mm, but others I like the 20 to 35mm better. I initially thought that 20 to 35mm wouldn't control the flares as well, especially because it's a wider lens, but a few shots the 23mm actually seem to have more flaring. Surprise twist. Now, out of the camera, there's a lot more distortion and vignetting on the 20 to 35mm lens, but with Adobe Camera RAW, it cleans it up pretty well and you can't really see a difference once you edit it. Here you can see what it looks like without lens correction on the 20 to 35 and with. Another benefit to the 23mm prime is that the f-stop goes all the way down to f32. I find this really useful for long exposure shots, maybe where I didn't have time to grab an ND filter, and it's enabled me to get some long exposure sunset shots that I probably wouldn't have been able to do if it only went to f/22, which is where the 20-35mm goes. So f/32 on the 23mm for all you long exposure junkies. That's some good f-stopping. Overall, it's hard not to love the new 20-35mm Fuji lens. It's the first wide-angle zoom we've got on the GFX camera bodies, and it's gone on literally every trip taken since I've got it. But at the same time, I'm not sure I'm ready to part ways with the 23mm. I do think if you can only afford one of these lenses, the 20-35mm is the obvious choice. It's way more flexible, but I do still think the 23mm is a really solid lens, and I won't be selling mine anytime soon. Anyway, I hope this review is helpful. I'm Christian with Film Jams, and we'll see you next week. 23, 20-35, 23, 20-35. That's some good f-stopping.